the middle of an empty desert, something massive is rising. Hidden from tourists, shielded from maps, and almost never discussed in public. This is Saudi Prince Salman's $50 billion desert palace, a project so secretive it only surfaced through satellite images. Stay until the end because we'll reveal why this palace isn't just a home, but a strategic weapon designed to control power, mobility, and influence far beyond Saudi Arabia. The $50 billion palace rising from the desert. From above, it does not look real. In satellite images taken just 5 years apart, an empty stretch of sand near the Red Sea transforms into a geometric scar of ambition. This is not a resort, not a military base, not a conventional city. Hidden deep inside NEOM, roughly 105 miles west of Tabuk, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is building what insiders describe as a $50 billion desert palace, embedded within the futuristic spine of the line. The location itself explains the secrecy. NEOM is not connected to existing cities, highways, or population centers. It sits at the crossroads of Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Egypt, with direct access to the Red Sea shipping lanes. Within this zone, the palace complex occupies a coastal enclave where desert cliffs meet private beaches, shielded from public access and commercial flight paths. This is intentional. Privacy at this scale is not a luxury, it is a strategic asset. What makes this palace unprecedented is not just cost, but design logic. Unlike traditional royal compounds, this residence is integrated into the line, a 170-kilometer-long vertical city designed to house millions without cars, streets, or emissions. The palace is not meant to stand apart from the future city. It is meant to command it. Satellite data from 2019 to 2024 shows accelerated construction patterns that defy normal timelines, with infrastructure appearing first, followed by greenery, artificial lagoons, and geometric road systems carved directly into the desert. At the core of the complex are 10 helipads, spaced for simultaneous arrivals, allowing the Crown Prince to land from multiple directions without relying on a single flight path. Surrounding them are tree-lined boulevards, maintained through advanced desalination and irrigation systems, a necessity in a region where rainfall is nearly non-existent. Engineers have installed artificial waterways and lagoons that regulate microclimates, lowering surface temperatures around the palace and adjacent gardens. To the west, a private marina extends into the Red Sea, designed specifically for ultra-large vessels. This marina is calibrated to accommodate yachts in the $400 million range, including MBS's own superyacht Serene. The shoreline includes controlled access beaches, invisible from public sea routes, monitored by layered security systems both above and below water. A full-scale championship golf course has been carved into the desert plateau nearby, an engineering contradiction that underscores the project's philosophy. Scarcity is irrelevant when capital and technology are aligned. Maintaining playable greens in this climate costs millions annually, but the expense is marginal within a project of this magnitude. What shocks analysts most is timing. Construction accelerated during periods when Saudi Arabia publicly announced budget tightening due to fluctuating oil prices. Yet this palace moved forward uninterrupted, suggesting it occupies a different category of priority altogether. It is not merely a residence, it is a symbol, a command center, and a physical declaration of how power will be staged in the post-oil era. And this is only the beginning, because the desert palace is not meant to stand alone. It is designed to connect seamlessly with something far larger, far more mobile, and far more secretive than any building could ever be. Before we move on to the floating and flying palaces that extend this empire beyond land, drop a comment below and tell me this. Is this palace a visionary investment in the future, or the most expensive symbol of power ever built in silence? Architecture as power projection. The palace rising inside NEOM is not designed to impress tourists, investors, or even foreign leaders at first glance. Its architecture serves a different purpose: to communicate authority without explanation. Every structural choice inside this desert complex reflects a calculated message about permanence, control, and the future direction of Saudi power. The visual language begins with Moroccan and Islamic architectural traditions chosen deliberately. Instead of glass-heavy Western minimalism, the palace relies on hand-cut geometric patterns, carved stone arches, and glazed ceramic mosaics produced by elite artisans. These are not decorative flourishes. In Islamic architecture, geometry represents order, divine balance, and continuity across centuries. By embedding these motifs into a futuristic mega-project, the palace positions itself as a bridge between legacy and inevitability. It signals that modernization does not replace tradition, it absorbs it. Color palettes across the compound are muted but intentional: desert ochres, deep blues, and emerald greens drawn from historical North African palaces. High-grade ceramics alone can cost several $1,000,000 per structure, imported and custom fired to withstand extreme heat without fading. Courtyards are arranged to control sightlines, ensuring privacy while allowing natural airflow, a technique refined long before air conditioning existed. This is ancient climate intelligence fused with modern engineering. Water infrastructure is where symbolism turns into domination. Maintaining a livable oasis in one of the harshest climates on Earth requires constant energy input. Beneath the palace lies a dedicated desalination network, separate from public NEOM utilities, producing fresh water around the clock. This water feeds underground cooling channels, ornamental lagoons, and thousands of mature trees transplanted into the desert. The operational cost runs into tens of millions of dollars annually, yet the system exists for one reason: to demonstrate that scarcity no longer applies. Nowhere is this more visible than the international standard golf course carved into the surrounding plateau. Golf courses are notoriously water-intensive, even in temperate climates. Here, every green is sustained by precision irrigation, soil engineering, and climate regulation. Industry experts estimate desert golf maintenance at $5 million per year or more, excluding initial construction costs. The course is not recreational excess, it is a statement. If a desert can host a flawless fairway, then limits have been removed. Internal roadways reinforce the illusion of an enclosed world. Tree-lined boulevards curve inward, blocking long-distance visibility and creating the sensation of moving deeper into an exclusive enclave. Vehicles are routed through concealed access corridors, while pedestrian areas remain visually untouched by infrastructure. This separation between function and appearance is intentional. Power, in this design philosophy, should never look mechanical. Most importantly, the palace is not conceived as a private residence. It is a visual anchor for Vision 2030. From the air, its geometry aligns with the linear logic of the line, integrating royal authority into the physical blueprint of Saudi Arabia's future cities. It does not sit beside the future, it sits at its center. This is architecture used the way empires once used fortresses, cathedrals, and capitals, not to comfort those inside, but to silently instruct everyone else. The NEOM workforce machine. What makes the desert palace inside NEOM truly unprecedented is not only its scale or cost, but the human system required to bring it into existence. At its peak, the project operates with more than 140,000 workers, a number projected to rise to 200,000 by 2026. This is not a construction site in the traditional sense. It functions as a self-contained state, engineered to convert capital into physical reality at a speed rarely seen in modern history. The workforce is distributed across tightly controlled zones, each with its own housing, medical facilities, logistics hubs, and security perimeters. Entire prefabricated cities have been erected solely to sustain labor flow. Power grids, desalination plants, food supply chains, and transport corridors exist only to serve the build. Industry analysts estimate that maintaining a workforce of this size in a remote desert environment costs several $billion annually before a single structure is completed. Unlike conventional megaprojects that rely on decentralized contractors, NEOM operates with centralized command logic. Construction schedules are synchronized across dozens of disciplines, from heavy excavation and marine engineering to architectural detailing and landscape transplantation. Materials arrive from Europe, Asia, and North America through dedicated ports and air routes. A single delay in steel, concrete additives, or ceramic imports can ripple across hundreds of kilometers of active build zones. This level of orchestration resembles military logistics more than civilian construction. At the core of this machine sits the palace complex. It is not merely another structure within NEOM. It acts as the operational and symbolic center of gravity. From this point, decisions cascade outward across the largest construction effort currently underway anywhere in the world. The palace does not wait for NEOM to be completed. NEOM is being shaped around it. Labor itself is treated as a strategic asset. Skilled engineers, project managers and specialists are rotated through high-security clearance layers, while manual labor is organized through precision scheduling systems that minimize downtime in extreme heat. Night shifts, climate-adjusted work cycles and automated machinery compensate for conditions that would halt most projects. Every hour saved translates into millions of dollars preserved across timelines valued in the tens of billions of dollars. This conversion of wealth into workforce and workforce into structure reflects a broader Saudi economic doctrine. Capital is no longer static, it is mobilized. Funds drawn from entities like the Public Investment Fund, managing assets exceeding $700 billion, are deployed not just to generate financial returns, but to reshape geography itself. Labor becomes the intermediary between abstract wealth and permanent influence. The palace rising from this system is therefore inseparable from the human scale beneath it. Its walls, roads and gardens are the visible outcome of a workforce operating with industrial intensity across years. Every stone laid is backed by supply contracts, labor housing, security operations and logistical planning on a continental scale. What emerges is not just a residence but proof of capability, a demonstration that Saudi Arabia can marshal population, resources and time toward a singular objective, regardless of terrain or climate. The palace exists because the workforce machine makes it inevitable. And as NEOM expands, this machine does not slow down. It accelerates, refining its ability to turn ambition into concrete steel and stone, one coordinated shift at a time. The global palace network of Prince Salman. Power at this level cannot remain fixed in one geography. For Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, real influence requires mobility, redundancy and architectural reach across continents. His global palace network is designed not as luxury for comfort alone, but as a distributed system of control, diplomacy and symbolic dominance. At the core of this network stands Al Yamamah Palace in Riyadh, a fortress of governance stretching over 4 million square feet. This is not simply a residence, it functions as a nerve center where political authority, military coordination and economic planning converge. Entire wings are dedicated to state operations, private hospitals, secure communications and ceremonial halls capable of hosting delegations at a scale few governments can accommodate. Its sheer size allows power to operate invisibly, without exposure or dependency on public infrastructure. Complementing it is Uga Palace, also in Riyadh, engineered for diplomacy rather than governance. This palace exists for moments when visibility matters. Heads of state, defense ministers and financial power brokers are received here under controlled grandeur. Every corridor, ceiling height and reception hall is calibrated to project stability and permanence. The palace itself becomes a silent negotiator, reinforcing Saudi authority before a single word is spoken. Beyond the kingdom, the network expands into Europe. Chateau Louis XIV in France, acquired for $31 million, represents strategic presence rather than extravagance. Built as a modern interpretation of French royal architecture, the estate integrates advanced smart systems behind classical facades. Beneath its symmetry lies an underwater meditation chamber with an acrylic dome, private cinema, nightclub, fortified safe room and a wine cellar holding over 3,000 bottles. This residence allows the Crown Prince to operate within Europe discreetly, without reliance on hotels or foreign facilities. Further west, near the Strait of Gibraltar, stands the Moroccan Palace in Tangier, a 74-acre coastal estate designed for seasonal relocation. This compound includes 3 helipads, large-scale entertainment tents, and fully secured perimeters extending over a kilometer. During royal stays, the operational cost of this estate has reached $100 million in a single season, reflecting not indulgence but the logistics of transporting staff, security, equipment, and diplomatic infrastructure across borders. At its peak, this residence temporarily injected over $100 million into Morocco's tourism economy during one extended royal visit. Together, these palaces form a network rather than a collection. Each serves a specific function: command, diplomacy, discretion, or retreat. They allow leadership to move fluidly between regions while maintaining absolute control over environment, security, and narrative. This architecture of mobility reveals a deeper strategy. Power is no longer anchored to a single throne room. It travels, adapts and recalibrates across continents, supported by assets measured not in rooms or acres, but in hundreds of millions of dollars deployed with precision. And as the network expands, so does the ability to govern beyond borders, without ever appearing exposed. Mobile palaces on the sea. For leaders operating at the highest tier of power, permanence can become a liability. Fixed locations create predictability. That is why the most sensitive conversations, negotiations, and retreats often happen far from land, aboard vessels that are constantly moving. For Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the ocean is not an escape, it is an extension of governance. At the center of this floating empire is the superyacht Serene, acquired for approximately 500 million euros. Stretching nearly 134 meters in length, Serene is less a yacht and more a sovereign platform. Designed by Espernoino and built by Fincantieri, the vessel carries engineering normally reserved for naval flagships, yet wrapped in absolute luxury. Its 8 MTU engines allow transcontinental range, ensuring weeks at sea without port dependency. What separates Serene from every other yacht on the planet is not size, but function. Hidden within its steel hull is a fully operational submarine bay, capable of deploying underwater craft without surfacing. Above deck, 2 helipads allow aerial access at all times, one of which can be reconfigured into a swimming pool or event space within hours. This adaptability allows the yacht to transform based on purpose, from private residence to diplomatic venue. Inside, the experience defies conventional luxury. A snow room maintained at -12°C produces real falling snow, designed for thermal contrast therapy after exposure to desert heat. There is an indoor seawater pool, an open-air cinema, soundproof lounges, and secure conference rooms isolated from external signals. Every corridor, ceiling height, and lighting temperature is calibrated for comfort, discretion, and psychological ease. Perhaps the most symbolic element aboard Serene is its role as a mobile art vault. The yacht has reportedly housed Salvator Mundi, Leonardo da Vinci's final known painting, purchased for $450.3 million. Whether displayed publicly or stored in secure conditions, the presence of such an artifact transforms the yacht into a floating museum of power, carrying cultural capital alongside political authority. Serene is not merely a private indulgence, it functions as a mobile diplomatic environment where meetings occur beyond surveillance jurisdictions and outside traditional protocol. Conversations held here leave no paper trails, no hotel records, and no public visibility. Security teams operate in layered zones, and the surrounding waters act as a natural buffer against intrusion. In this context, the sea becomes neutral territory. Borders dissolve, time slows, decisions made on board are insulated from pressure and spectacle. The yacht moves silently between regions, carrying influence measured not in nautical miles, but in hundreds of millions of dollars, invested to ensure absolute autonomy. This is not travel, it is strategy in motion. Palaces in the sky. Power does not pause at airport gates. For rulers whose decisions move markets and borders, even the sky must be controlled. That is why the aircraft used by Saudi Prince Salman's family are not planes in the conventional sense. They are airborne command centers, engineered to ensure authority continues uninterrupted at 40,000 feet. At the center of this fleet is a Boeing 747-400 BJ Flying Palace, valued between $300 million and $500 million, depending on configuration and defensive systems. From the outside, it resembles a standard wide-body jet. Inside, it functions more like a secured palace that happens to fly. The aircraft is customized with a master bedroom finished in gold-accented materials, private lounges, conference rooms, and a fully equipped medical bay. Every space is designed for long-haul endurance, not spectacle. One of the most distinctive features is the automated prayer room, engineered to subtly rotate toward Mecca during flight. This single detail reveals how tradition and technology are fused at the highest level, ensuring spiritual routines remain uninterrupted regardless of altitude or geography. Lighting systems adjust to circadian rhythms to reduce fatigue, while air filtration is calibrated for extended occupancy during non-stop intercontinental missions. Security defines the aircraft's true value. The defensive architecture is often compared to Air Force One, including encrypted communications, missile deflection countermeasures, radar jamming, and fighter escort coordination when required. This level of protection turns the aircraft into sovereign airspace, where conversations occur beyond interception and schedules remain invisible to the public. Operating costs reach $10,000 to $15,000 per flight hour, a price paid for absolute autonomy. The 747 is supported by a broader aerial fleet that includes Gulfstream G650S, each valued around $65 million, configured for rapid response travel and discreet diplomatic movement. These jets allow the family to operate on multiple timelines simultaneously, deploying leadership across continents within hours. What makes these aircraft remarkable is not luxury alone, but continuity. Meetings do not stop when wheels lift off. Decisions are signed, negotiations advance, and crises are managed in real time. The sky becomes an extension of governance, not a transition space. In this world, travel is not movement, it is control, preserved at altitude and protected by engineering measured in hundreds of millions of dollars. If you had access to a flying palace like this, what would matter more to you? Security, speed, or silence? Let me know in the comments. This palace tells us far more than a story about luxury. First, it shows that real power is designed into infrastructure, not displayed on social media. When you control land, airspace, and mobility, visibility becomes optional. Second, it proves that wealth at this level is no longer personal, it becomes strategic capital, used to shape diplomacy, security, and national identity all at once. And third, it reveals how modern rulers think in systems, not symbols. Palaces on land, at sea, and in the sky, working together as one moving command structure. If this breakdown helped you see billionaire power from a new angle, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It directly helps us bring you deeper stories like this. And don't go anywhere, because in part 2, we'll uncover how these hidden palaces connect to Saudi Arabia's global influence far beyond its borders.